Imagine finding out that the last 5 years that you spent working didn't even need to happen. You could already been retired, traveling, enjoying life, sleeping in. Well, that's exactly what happened to one of my clients. He came to me convinced that he needed to work until he was 65 because that's what his existing financial advisor told him. But when we built a proper retirement model using real numbers and realistic assumptions, we discovered that he could retire at 60. No extra risk, no lotto won, the same savings, just a better plan. And here's the thing, he is not the only one. Lots of people in Ireland are working longer than they need to, simply because they haven't seen the full picture. Hi, I'm Kevin Elliott, a certified financial planner here in Ireland. I spent 18 years in quantitative finance in London and New York. Now I help clients here at home make smarter retirement decisions. In this video, I'm going to show you the biggest mistake that keeps people working too long, the strategy that I use to help this client reimagine his retirement, and how you can use the same approach to see what's possible for you. We'll walk you through a real client case study with real numbers so you can see the power of proper planning in action. Let's dive in. Meet Barry. He got in touch after a friend and existing client suggested a second opinion. Barry had just turned 60 and like many people, he somehow thought that 65 was his retirement age because that's just what people do. His financial advisor told him the same thing. Work for another 5 years and then we'll reassess things. But Barry wasn't convinced and he wanted greater clarity. He told me, I would love to retire earlier, but I don't think it's realistic. Now, that is a mindset I hear all the time, especially here in Ireland. People assume that 65 is a rule, not a choice. That may be dictated by the state pension or workplace schemes that usually use 65 as the benchmark. But here's the truth, retirement doesn't have to start at 65. It starts when the numbers work for you. So we sat down and looked at Barry's full financial picture, and that's when things got interesting. Barry is married to Fiona and he works full-time as a senior software engineer. He earns €80,000 gross per year and takes home about $57,000. Now it is a demanding job, and while he is good at it, he feels he's done his bit. He's ready for the next chapter. They own their home outright, or nearly. There's a small mortgage remaining that'll be cleared this year. The property is valued at €600,000 and they'd prefer to stay there in retirement. Now downsizing just doesn't appeal to them. This is their family home, so they want to stay put. Now when we looked at their retirement assets, here's what we found. They've got pensions totaling €450,000, $350,000 in Barry's name and $100,000 in Fiona's name. An investment of $180,000 with Irish Life outside the pension. Altogether, that is $630,000 in assets that they can use to support their lifestyle once they stop working. On top of this, they will both qualify for the full state pension starting at age 66, which is currently around $15,000 per person per year. So that is €30,000 combined. Barry's current take-home pay is around $57,000, and when I asked what they'd like to spend on retirement, they said that they wanted to maintain a similar lifestyle. So $57,000 net would be about right. This is where real planning begins, because on paper, they're in a strong position, but the challenging part is figuring out how to draw down from those assets over time and whether $57,000 per year is actually sustainable, especially if they want to retire earlier than expected. Let's talk about the so-called 4% rule. Bradley brought this up in our conversation. It's one of those rules of thumb that you hear. Here's how it works. You total up your retirement assets and you assume that you can withdraw 4% a year adjusted for inflation. The idea is if you stick to that, your numbers should last you 30 years. But in practice, it rarely works that neatly. Let's look at Barry and Fiona. Now, I know they're hoping to retire before 66, but for the sake of explanation, let's assume that they want to retire at 66. So at that point, they will have €30,000 a year in their combined pension, but they want $57,000 net. So they'll need to withdraw $27,000 per year from their own assets. Now let's work backwards. $27,000 divided by 4% is €675,000. That's how much they need under the 4% rule, but they only have €630,000 in assets. Even if they wait to age 66, they fall short. And Barry does not want to wait. He wants to retire now at 60. So we tested these numbers. What would it take to bridge the gap by 66? You'd need to invest €1,450 per month for the next 5 years, assuming a 5% return. That is 30% of Barry's take-home pay. A big ask, especially at this stage in life. That's why they left the previous advisor's office feeling deflated. The advice was, save more, invest more, and hope for the best. But Barry and Fiona were not convinced, and neither was I. If this is sounding familiar, and you're wondering whether your own plan is really built for the life that you want? Book a free consultation. The link is in the description. It's designed for business owners and high-income professionals who want a clear, joined-up retirement plan. We'll map out your pensions, stress test your drawdown strategy, and bring it all together from a tax and cash flow to risk and legacy perspective. No pressure, just honest advice focused on what's possible for you. Let's go back to the advice that they were given. Their previous advisor looked at their numbers, ran the 4% rule, and said, you need to invest more into your pension funds over the next 5 years. That was it. No deeper conversation, no stress testing, no financial modeling, just a savings target. And on paper, that's not wrong. But in reality, telling a 60-year-old to save over €1,400 a month with no clear outcome, well, it simply isn't realistic. Barry earns $80,000, takes home $57,000 a year, and like most people in Ireland, he has a life to live. He doesn't have piles of cash lying around. That kind of advice, just save more, that can feel like a dead end, especially when you're hoping to slow down, not speed up. But I knew we weren't looking at the full picture. Barry and Fiona had good assets, solid income, clear goals. What they lacked was a proper plan, a joined-up strategy that reflected how life really works. So let's look at the real question Barry and Fiona had. Not can we retire, but when can we retire safely? So we ran two scenarios. One where they retire at age 65 and one where they stop working now at age 60. In both cases, they want to withdraw $57,000 net per year. That's the amount they need to maintain their current lifestyle. We modeled the plan using a life expectancy of age 94 for both Barry and Fiona. That is to be conservative. So let's start with the scenario where they retire at 65. In this case, the numbers hold up. Cash flow modeling shows that their assets last until age 94, and there's even a surplus. They have projected to have €404,000 remaining at death and future money. Now let's rewind. What if Barry retires at 60? We ran the same model, same spending, $57,000 net per year. No lifestyle cuts, no extra savings. And at this time, the result is completely different. They actually run out of money by age 77. That's a serious gap. It leaves nearly 2 decades without funding. And that's why the 60 retirement plan in its current form doesn't work. But there's a problem with that scenario too. It assumes their spending stays flat from age 60 all the way to 94, and that's simply not realistic. Which brings us to the next part of the story, a better way to model retirement spending, the go-go, slow-go, no-go strategy. So far, we've shown that retirement at 65 works, but retirement at 60 doesn't. At least not when you spend flat $57,000 per year. But here's the thing, real life isn't like that. Spending changes as you move through retirement. That's where most plans go wrong. They assume that you'll spend the same at 85 as you would at 65. But ask yourself, are you really going to be booking long-haul flights at 90 or going on extravagant road trips, playing golf or guided tours? The answer is probably not. That's why we rebuilt the plan to match how Barry and Fiona's retirement may actually unfold. We broke retirement into 3 distinct phases. The go-go years from 60 to 68, when energy is high and health is good and travel and lifestyle spending is at its peak. Then, the slow-go years from 68 to 78, when things naturally slow down just a little bit, spending starts to taper. And finally, the no-go years from 78 to 94, when most spending shifts to essentials like home comforts and healthcare. Here's how we structured it in today's money. The go-go years, $57,000 per year. Slow-go years, $42,000 per year. And then the no-go years, $35,000 per year. We adjusted each phase for inflation, so their spending power stayed intact. But when we plugged these new numbers into the model, the outcome changed dramatically. No more shortfall, no more running out of money at 77. Instead, they could now retire at 60 and make the money last all the way to 94. That's the power of realistic planning. It doesn't ask you to guess, it asks, what do you want your life to look like and when? Coming up next, we'll test the trade-off. More life now or more security later. So what if Barry and Fiona retire now at 60? With their new go-go, slow-go, and no-go plan, the numbers work, but there are still trade-offs. We brought their go-go years forward from 60 to 68. That means the no-go years come sooner also from 78. They'll have less capacity for spontaneous spending later in life. In short, more life now, less flexibility later. But Barry and Fiona were okay with that. They'd use their healthy and energy while they still could. They'd rather do that than stockpile their cash for a future that they may not be able to enjoy. That is the power of proper planning. It's not about squeezing every euro out of growth. It's about making intentional choices with your time, your money, and your lifestyle. Up to now, we've talked mostly about the numbers. how long the money lasts, when to retire, and how the spending phases affect sustainability. But real planning, it goes beyond spreadsheets, because life isn't about income and expenses, it's also about care costs in later life. Whether to downsize, not because you have to, but maybe you want to, helping your kids with, say, a deposit for a home, or passing on your wealth when you're still able to see the impact. None of these were urgent for Barry and Fiona, but they are still important for many of you. And the beauty of flexible retirement planning is that it can evolve as life unfolds. Because here's the key takeaway. This wasn't about chasing high returns or throwing thousands into a pension. All we did was change the lens, not the maths. We focused on what really matters: time, health, and peace of mind. That's the kind of planning that gives you options and helps you make decisions with confidence. So if you've been wondering whether you really need to work until 65, or if your retirement plan is built on assumptions, not evidence, maybe it's time for a fresh perspective. Because even when a plan looks fine on paper, small decisions can quietly sabotage your outcome. And it's not because people are reckless, it's because no one ever showed them the full picture. If you want to see how proper planning could open up your options and maybe even give you the option for retiring early, brew a free strategy call. The link's below. It's designed for business owners and high-income professionals who want a clear, tax-smart retirement plan. We'll map your pensions, stress test your cash flow and your drawdown strategy, and we'll bring it all together from a tax and legacy perspective. No pressure, no jargon, just clarity. And if you found this video helpful, you definitely want to watch the next one. It's how the bucket strategy can maximize your retirement income. It builds upon what we've covered today, and it shows you how to match your money to your timeline to reduce unnecessary tax and stay in control even when markets wobble. Watch it now. You'll see the link on the screen below. Until next time, plan with purpose, not guesswork, and make sure your wealth is working as hard as you are.